How important do you think that World War I was in starting the October Revolution in Russia?
Thanks very much, and we'll take the third. I see everybody else as well, but we'll take those three, yes?
I just wanted to know, how can we challenge those who argue that the October Revolution in 1917 was a coup?
In terms of Britain, I think first of all we have to say that the unrevolutionary nature of the British is massively exaggerated. This itself is a way of writing history so that it's played down the whole time. Trotsky wrote a very good book about this called Where's Britain Going, which actually goes through quite a lot of the revolutionary history and explains it did happen. I don't agree that the English Revolution didn't happen. It just a lot of the most radical elements have been written out are only recently beginning to be talked about. We can go through British history, or we can think about Scottish history. I mean, did you know that the first general strike in history happened in Scotland in 1820, for example? I mean, these are partly the kind of pressures that produce this kind of, yes, I'm doing a patriotic thing here. But I think you're right about the oldest capitalist state. That's the important thing. It's something to do with the solidity of the bourgeois state in Britain. You may not think this to look at the political representatives of the ruling class now. I do feel that the quality of the British ruling class has really declined appallingly. They used to be quite skillful at doing it in maintaining order. The solidity of the structures, the kind of the way the ruling class was trained up to compromise and deal with things and so on. So I think that the nature of the state and the way it kind of relates to the society is the issue here. What that probably means, though, is that when things do happen in Britain, they have the potential to actually become quite explosive quite quickly because of the pent-up nature of that. We're seeing fragmentation happening now. But I wouldn't want to predict when everything would happen, but clearly the kind of stability which they relied on for so long is now coming to an end, I think, certainly in the actual nature of the show. That is something to do with World War I and what happened in Russia, because in Russia you have a complete opposite to Britain. You've got a really sort of rigid, feudal absolutist state, which is really difficult to reform. So when it comes under any kind of pressure, as it did during World War I, and when people begin to try and fight for bread, land and freedom and so on, it actually begins to crumble much more quickly. So in a sense, World War I think the tensions in Tsarist Russia would have come under explosive kind of contradictions anyway, but the sheer pressure of maintaining a war effort, I think, tore it apart much more quickly. It wasn't able to adapt in a way that, for example, you see where all the big revolutionary struggles at the end of World War I, most of them are in Central and Eastern Europe. In the West, there are still upheavals, and I mean, again, Glasgow 1919, in France to get the nuclear army and so on, but they're containable. So I think here the state, the nature of the state is really important. The question of Russian revolution as a coup, I think the best answer to this is actually to read some history about it and get to see what actually happened. It's difficult for me. Anytime you are going to take power, right, and you're going to seize the state on the basis of the kind of struggles that have been going on in Russia for 8 months before this actually happened, at some point you've got to get a decision. Someone's got to do this, right? Now, bigger, smaller groups of people, but at some point that decision has to be made, and you can't. It's not going to spontaneously happen. Everyone's going to wander into the season with the palace, they all think the same thing at the same moment, and so so you have to make a decision. So that's why it looks like a coup, is because someone took it, and they went to the Soviet to get the permission of that to go ahead and do it. But it's like, well, how do you think a revolution happens at the final moment of seizing state power? There has to be a decision to do that, and someone has to take that. And by this point, the Bolsheviks and their allies have kind of earned the right to raise the question because of the way in which they tried to lead in the course of the revolution itself. Obviously, standing.
I want to make 2 quick announcements in case anybody has to leave early. First of all, the organisers and the contributors to this group of talks are all volunteers. We have got some expenses. We have fares, we have some venues, we have publicity. And I think on the way out, there'll be something that you could make a contribution, and that will be really gratefully received. And the other thing, again, if anybody does have to leave before the end, Duncan back there, there's also a bookstore from Haymarket Books, which is co-sponsoring these talks. So please have a look at the bookstore as well as you read. Okay, so a lot of people have indicated. I saw somebody over there, and then. Okay, you go first. Go ahead.
Tommy, yeah. I was wanting to ask you, I'm exactly the same age as you, so I remember all these things. I mean, I was a schoolboy in the 70s. So I remember what completely through to me was the role of bureaucracy in putting the fire out. No, the labour bureaucracy, as well as the industrial bureaucracy, the political bureaucracy. If you think back to the social contract in the 70s and all that, I mean, I knew Lewis, who was, I'm absolutely happy for a start. But I mean, I saw the way he was sucked in, and talking to him years after that, the way he got sucked into bureaucracy. And this happened to a whole layer of them. They were the best working class fighters. And I think hopefully when that type of thing arises again, we'll have the politics to be able to combat it.
Okay, thanks very much. Would somebody else?
Yes. Right, 3 points quickly again. One of the points of the British Revolution, the English Revolution that was raised earlier on, I wondered another time whether or not there is something to the idea that the ideology that emerged out of the precise contours of how the revolution happened and when it happened in England, i.e. Whig theory, has something to do with it, because the difference between Whig theory and much of the ideology that emerged out of European revolutions eventually later, i.e. Republican ideology, it's much less amenable to being used for revolutionary ends. I mean, the left in France able to use the revolution slogan for, since the you can't really do that with a kind of, a constitutional monarchy set up around this country. And maybe, I wonder to what extent that makes a difference. Typically, by war and recession, wars have often been key in these sort of revolutionary upheavals, including Vietnam. Could also point to the upheavals in and around the time of the Gulf War 10 years ago, 10 years ago. On the other hand, recession tends to lead to reaction. Neoliberalism came out of a recession. We're now seeing another shift to the right now. So I think, there maybe it's worth looking at those sort of connections and seeing where that goes. And in terms of the legacy of the 60s, I think the biggest positive legacy probably was the fact that a lot of the social movement, the fight against racism, for gay rights, for women's rights, disability rights, made progress. Even amid neoliberalism. That's probably the biggest legacy, the positive legacy that period actually has for us. We can actually celebrate.
Thank you.
Could I ask your view of 2 historical events, and then put a more general point to you? First of all, where do you place the Northern Irish civil rights movement in this upsurge? And as far as Britain is concerned, that's a very important issue at present. Secondly, at the very beginning, I think it's the introduction, but it might be the preface, of Trotsky's History of the Russian Revolution, he describes that revolutions arise from people's conservatism. For decades, the social democratic criticism is a safety valve. And then events, and people are routinized and in rigid mental situations. And then events crash over people and break the mold, and the masses experience a leaping creativity from mind to mind. And the police think this is the work of conspirators. But the truth is, the masses are racing ahead, and the revolutionaries have to run to catch up. Now, I don't think that what you described as the revolutionary or potentially revolutionary conjunctions in any way match Trotsky's analysis of the history, that particular comment, General Gloss, on the Russian Revolution. I wonder what you have to say to that. Was he wrong, I believe? But more importantly, it seems to me that a key factor tends to be, like Portugal, for example, Russia, Germany, lost wars and conscripts, rebellion. Now, I'm reading a very interesting book, The War Within, a history of the American Civil War, sorry, Vietnam War, the American War. And what this man describes, what the author describes is the absolute inability of the old left, the new left, and the radicals to get their act together to agree on how they wanted to fight the American War in Vietnam, and whether or not they should try and involve the African Americans, join up in their struggle for civil rights. The absence of any common languages, I think that's essentially what it says, any common political theory, meant that they could achieve virtually nothing. And all he talks about is the constraints placed on, in the United States, based on the government, the federal government, by the people that the government could do certain things, but it was really, as you said, the Vietnamese who won the war. Now, I think what I would ask is, do you not think that in the current economic neoliberalism austerity, do you not think that in this country at the moment, events are crashing over the people and destroying what they had hoped for? And if so, where is the Revolutionary Party? Will take advantage of this. And from your own admission, the Tom may hold some responsibility.
Or take some more.
Do you think there's space for talking about the Cultural Revolution and the Red Guards when we're discussing social movements in 1968, or do you just think it's an anomaly?
I'm thinking about the questions you posed at the end, Neil, about what's happened since and what might be to come. Just very kind of schematically, it does strike me that there were two after echoes. There was a series of events around 1989 when I was a student, before the apartheid and before the Berlin Wall and the uprisings in Europe, which at the moment, when I was a student, this was all very exciting, because very rapidly the new world order emerged, and the kind of the Fukuyama interpretation of this kind of got glossed over any kind of revolutionary agency. The other moment, it seemed to me, was and the Arab Springs, which at the time offered a quite unprecedented beacon of hope, only to be drowned in blood by military coups and bombs and so on in the years to come. In terms of where next, I think it really echoes the point which has been made. One of the tumult we've seen in the world order over the past 20 years, sitting underneath it is this shift at the centre of capitalism eastwards and to China and to Far Eastern economies. And it seems to me that any future destination is worth the struggle. That's where we need to be looking, and we need to be integrating that into our analysis much more strongly.
Shall I take one more?
Oh, yeah.
The world here. Okay, sorry, I'm just taking people in order, but I told them, okay. Yes?
Yeah, I wanted to say something about China and about the Cultural Revolution, following on from the question was asked, because in a sense there's two Cultural Revolutions. There's what actually happened in China, which is mostly horrific, and the history of which, by and large, doesn't emerge until much later, and there's what people think is happening in China. What people think is happening in China is that this is part of the general uprising of the young against the old order, and it feeds into that much more general sense of both the necessities, but also your ability to go, on an attack. And I think it's that image of the Cultural Revolution is, because what we know now is about the horrors of it, we can forget the extent to which it was a huge inspiration. The Black Panther Party acquired its first guns because the founders of the Black Panthers got copies of Mountain's Red Book and went to Berkeley University and sold them to the students and made enough money on proceeds to go and start Congress. The inspiration of China, for all its inspiration, it wasn't in fact true, was nevertheless an important part. And I wonder, one of the things I think that ties together a couple of things that were there, you didn't speak about explicitly, was that idea of the young against the old. I wonder if you could say something about that more directly.
carry on calling them before.
I'll try and answer some of it. Okay, I'll try and deal with the kind of specific historical points and then a series of more general reflections on the revolution and organisation and so on. Starting with the English Revolution. I think the problem here is that it comes in two parts. There isn't a single revolution. There's the events of what was actually started in Scotland in 1637, the English Civil War, which involved Ireland and Scotland as well. But the process here is more radical as the 40s go on, and in a sense, what the English ruling class, Scottish Revolution is a bit later, the English ruling class as it emerges wants to consolidate the victory over absolutism and against despoiled remnants of feudalism and so on, but it's worried that it will unleash the kind of popular struggles that occurred particularly in London and in the army in the 1640s. That's originally why they bring back Charles II in the 1660s, why they initially tolerated James's picadillos and Catholicism and all the rest of it later on. And they realised it's not going to work and that he's in alliance with France. They've then got to actually say, okay, we want to bring this in the most conservative way possible. So that's where the big thing in Davidson is. It's not present earlier on. If you read Harrington, James Harrington, he actually is pretty much proto-Marxist analysis of what was going on at the time in terms of new classes emerging and changes in production and all that sort of thing. But later on, John Locke, who supersedes him, is the guy who has a really conservative notion. In fact, he actually takes a step backward in revolution theory, because whereas Harrington has suggested this is a new type of society, a new form of social structure and political structure, what Locke says is, no, this is a cycle. We're getting rid of all this, we're going back to the cyclical notion of revolution as a process that simply restores a previous healthy situation. I know this is maybe obscure for some people here, but this is an important point because the consolidation of the English Revolution in 1688-89 is done in a conservative kind of way, ideologically and every other way, because they are worried about the unleashing popular forces, which was what happened in the 1640s in particular. So that's in a sense why that happened. That feeds back to the earlier discussion about the stability and conservatism of the British state. Okay, that's England. Northern Ireland, yes, this is absolutely crucial here. And what you can see, in a sense, is the civil rights movement drawing on two sources. One is the American, the black civil rights movement, and Derwin and people are quite clear about this. So they drew some of their experience of looking at what happened in the South, but the other was France, and that's the explosion in France as well. They bring both of these together. In fact, Derwin, in her autobiography, came out quite early, in 69 actually, so she talks about people from France arriving in Northern Ireland. She talked to people in Belfast and Derry about how their street fighting techniques, because they're obviously so superior to the French ones. And of course, France, that's the absolute model for us. But so there are four things going on here. And in fact, at one point, everyone says, I wish we would stop talking about the bloody Sorbonne and talk more about the Falls Road here in the north and south, because we don't just want to draw on what other people do. We have our own specific problems we have to deal with. Now, clearly, that is one of the things I mentioned about these kind of where people are discriminated against legally and on ethnic grounds, and that's clearly the case for the Catholics in the north. But I mean, it then moves into the actual military struggle phase, which is different from the civil rights struggle itself, and the military struggle of the IRA, which I think shifts the thing into a slightly different kind of parameter there. It's worth noting that the biggest and worst IRA atrocities in 74, 75 come right at the end of the period. And in a sense, I think deepen a kind of growing conservatism within some sections of the British working class. This is what this leads to, forming and so on. Which I don't think socialist support, by the way. And very good with that. Okay, so China, I think, is the answer. That there's a kind of real China, and then Kirsten Ross is listing it with, was a fantasy China, which French people in particular start with these mad ideas about, which is, in fact, there's no basis in reality. There was some resistance to Mao and a genuine kind of people trying to find a kind of proper socialist basis for doing so. I think in Shanghai there's a kind of commune which produced analysis saying that China was state capitalist, and some of this, and that's right. So there was some actual thinking going on there, and these were very small groups and almost crushed ruthlessly by the regime. Okay, so Trotsky's argument for this conservatism, then that sharpening and breaking, I think that's probably true in the case of Russia, but it's not a generalizable argument, because it doesn't happen everywhere. You know, there are all sorts of reasons of conjunctions as to why people move into revolutionary struggle. And it isn't just because of some, that kind of one incident. That's probably true in terms of what he's talking about in Russia, but it's certainly not true for a lot of the places I'm discussing here, the different kind of situations that are now. It's not good. I mean, the British working class wasn't particularly conservative in that sense. It had been waging fairly intense industrial struggle for about 2 decades, and actually there's a lot more willing to contemplate new forms of organisation than people often give it credit for. So I think I don't think we should have generalised explanations which apply to everything. It's not true. You know, any explanation has to be able to accommodate more than one example. I don't think Trotsky's argument does. In terms of the afterlife of 68 to 76, I think it's interesting because it shows the way in which things have already shifted. So you get 74, 75 is the kind of moment when most regimes fall, and that's like Ethiopia, Angola, Mozambique, Cambodia, Laos, South Vietnam. Right? It's about 12 months where more actual governments and states fall than any other point in history since 1848. Right? This is the general fact. What happens then is that the revolutions which follow, and that would be Nicaragua and Iran, and then Zimbabwe, that would be overthrow the regimes. They don't then go into what you'd expect them to do, which is set up kind of Stalinist state capitalist kind of directed economies. They actually, from the very start, begin to make concessions to the world market, to adopt some of the kind of things we'd see as being neoliberalism very early on. And obviously Iran is particularly important because the ideology here isn't some kind of state developmental thing, it's a radical form of Islam. So I think even just at the end of the 70s, you can see even these revolutions might be seen as they certainly started in something like Nicaragua and Zimbabwe as part of the period, but then come to the end, their consequences are quite different. In terms of the Revolutionary Party, well, comrades, it still has to be built, alas. I think the problem is that we have to realise what kind of party we're trying to build. And the problem, and this was certainly a problem in 1968, was that people simply went, I know, let's try and build what we think the Bolshevik Party was like in 1917. The problem is, Britain in 1968 wasn't like Russia in 1917. In fact, Britain in 1917 wasn't like Russia in 1917. And the idea that you can just reproduce this, and partly because of the pressure of the state that I raised earlier on, it's like, well, this is nuts. I mean, Russia, feudal absolutist state, country with 80% of the population are peasants in the middle of a world war. Right? That's not going to happen again, is it? A world war, prime conditions for us to have a revolution. It will be the annihilation of life on Earth if that happens again. So we're not, the peasants, absolute states, they tend to go. So you have to think more about what kind of way, what kind of organisation do you want that it can be revolutionary. It doesn't just think you're repeating the kind of a model from 100 years ago or worse. That can't be right. Just think about it. How could any model be like 100 years after it was initially tried out in quite different circumstances? It's one thing to be a revolutionary interventionist party, I agree, but the actual form that should take, that I think is still being worked out. And until you can start thinking about what that is like, instead of just defensively holding on to kind of things that we've known perhaps in our lives, and certainly from 68, people just tend to think, is there a model available to us? Well, something you think like the Bolsheviks did. That's what wasn't. The Bolsheviks didn't have a single model of a revolutionary party. This is nonsense. And Hal Draper pointed this out at the time, in 1971. There were 6 or 7 different models, depending on what the conditions were, the circumstances were, whether the revolution was taking place, whether it was in retreat, and so on. But instead, we've got this kind of thing that's supposed to be what Lenin model of the Bolshevik Party is like. It's not true. I think people need to acquaint themselves with the actual history of this, but more to the point, think of what we could genuinely be able to for the 21st century, that carries out the role of being revolutionary, because of the people on repeating the kind of structure of 100 years ago.
Thank you very much.
That was so brave and so gallant and had such amazing vision. They're still around with us now. What happened to these people?
Should have looked stand up.
That's a question my father never answered.
We'll come back to that. Sorry, I'll get him.
I really enjoyed the fact that the long 1960s went on as far as 1929, but started in 1637. I was particularly struck by your point about the impact of massive and quite sudden urbanisation, especially across third world and third
And I wondered whether there was a particular kind of resonance between that and the kind of experiences of the defeats of colonialism, in particular in Africa, like the Sixties states, and these kind of very non-urban sort of struggles. And then sort of thinking, about what's going on now, it seems that there's huge amounts of really rapid urbanisation going on, and whether that has thrown up some particular struggles, and whether there is some kind of similar resonance. So I don't know if there would be an equivalent but in the sense of like witnessing interior failures, in, for example, like the way that US imperialism is mired in complete state in the Middle East, and whether there might be some kind of connection between those, in terms of how people are thinking about things and seeing them happening in parallel.
Gosh, lots of people. I'll take some from the young group here.
Okay, sort of three questions in one regarding the October Revolution. Without the widespread discontent of the masses, do you think there would have been a revolution in the first place? And would you say, therefore, that's the most important aspect of the Russian Revolution? And do you think that mass discontent needs to happen for there to be a successful revolution in general?
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks for the talk. If I'm listening to you right, in terms of what you're saying, I've taken a long view of what you're saying. You're describing an ongoing bourgeois revolution. And the events that have followed on from it are things like 89, which developed capitalism, free market capitalism in Europe, my shoes are made in Vietnam, then up to 60 revolution shoes. The successes of the 60s are things like about rights, which are, I think everybody agrees, are positive, but they fit quite likely into large sections of the Tory party today. They're very important to the management of the workforce. In fact, they develop the members of the workforce, so more women will now work. Another point there is that the capitalism appears now to be bigger in America, which is why Trump, I think, has arisen. And this idea of America first is a reaction to the fact that capitalism has escaped America and their ability to control, which is below no experience. It's only recently that something, I think, in the last 10 or 15 years, I'm not sure exactly, that finally over 50% of people live in towns. And let's remember what bourgeois means. It is an ongoing bourgeois revolution. If you go back to Thomas Paine, you'll find opposition to autocracy. We see, for example, Portugal and various other examples like that. And his hero is Adam Smith, who's also against autocracy. The same with David Ricardo. David Ricardo wants to vote every year. This is proper radical, this is bourgeois radical. And we could be seeing what you described, an ongoing bourgeois revolution.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to take back to the back there. Yes, go ahead.
Could recommend one book that lays out the pattern and the points of the Russian Revolution. Yeah, what would it be?
There's one book. Sorry, I'm going to try to take somebody who has a book, then I'll come back.
Yeah, I'm happy to try to work out things just now. Do you attribute any significance to the, wasn't quite the end of it, but to the end of McCarthyism in the States?
Take another more? You want to take a couple more?
I'm not going to get started on exactly with this. How many people sold it?
Okay, we are going to come to a halt soon. Okay, you have your hands up back there.
I want to ask, what is your opinion now? Some social theoretics, like philosophers and political theorists, say that these 68 divided society into two different resisting social forces. Like one force is new social movements, like new people who wanted to escape the control of this disciplined society, and another part of it is ordinary working class who wanted to fight for their rights, for their welfare, and would you agree that there is that this distinction is so unbridgeable, and if yes, so what can be done about bridging?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just about the relevance of the Scottish movement, 68, 69, which I was involved with. And, question two, what can you know? I'm still active in housing issues and against the rights of iron and other issues like that. But it was a relevance because there was a lot of groups coming out, the Angry Brigade and I think in Bardemont and the others, they used squats and stuff like that. And a lot of stuff came out of the women's movement as well, I think. People living in communes and communal living. All that sort of stuff came out from the squats. And it went up to sort of 79, and then you get groups like The Clash who was squatting in North and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff that comes, I think, that come out of the squats. So, and the last one is the importance of housing, because that's still an issue now. So.
Okay. I think that's probably where we'll kind of come. One more? Okay. Yeah.
To what extent do you think the communist position, the Orthodox communist position, stimulates the growth of radicalism in particularly Western Europe? And why do you think, out of all of the current hegemony on the left in Southern Europe and in France, at the end of this period, was it the Social Democrats as opposed to any other position?
All right. I mean, the book everyone should read is Trotsky's History of Russian Revolution, which is very long, it's otherwise great, and even if you only read the first chapter, which will provide you with a theoretical understanding of what happened in Russia, but the rest of it's great as well, and the dynamics. There's plenty of quite good books that have come out in the last year, obviously, because it's been the centenary. One by Steve Smith, I think, spoke here in the last year. This session is very good. Another one, I mean, Trotsky's the fundamental text, so an actual participant involved in it, the nevertheless distancing himself and trying to take an objective view of what's going on. I think it's the foundational work. In terms of the Russian masses and the role of the masses and so on, yeah, I mean, obviously, we're talking about two different groups here. We're talking about the peasant masses who are the majority of the population, but also the kind of working class, concentrated class in the towns. But no revolution is possible unless it involves the majority of the people, or at least a significant population. In Russia, certainly the historical facts we know about it were that there were more people involved in the actual process than any other revolutionary process that we've seen in the modern era. That's also true of any subsequent revolution that's going to happen. Revolutions are not made by small groups of people, although bourgeois revolutions can be and have been. Top-down kind of affairs like that, but any genuine socialist revolution, a genuine social revolution that transforms and establishes society can only be done on the basis of the people participating in it and make that society themselves. So that the answer is yes, the masses, as Rob used this term, are absolutely essential here. On the bourgeois revolutions, which is a subject I'm obviously interested in, I think that what the bourgeois revolution is is the establishment of a state that basically is compatible with or allows capitalism to develop. Now, there are some parts of the world where that hadn't happened even into the latter half of the 20th century. The ones which were colonised, particularly some of the old absolutist regimes, mostly in North Africa and the Middle East, they were all overthrown though by 1976. That's the last gasp of the bourgeois revolution in any kind of form. And ironically, the people who carried a lot of them out were people who consider themselves to be communists or Stalinists in terms of creating state capitalistic developmental regimes. In fact, it mostly stopped being that very quickly as we got into the 1980s. I don't think that just bourgeois demands, which were radical back in the time when Smith made them, and so on, are necessarily reproducible now. I think the radical slogans of equality and so on that were raised in the African Revolution, the French Revolution, and so on, these are valuable because they can be turned against the bourgeoisie. In a sense, you can say you're not living up to your own slogans and your own demands. So like Frederick Douglass, the great black American former slave, said, the Declaration of Independence, what does it say? It excludes black people and all the other people, and all the rest of it. But if you interpret it, if you use it as a weapon, and turn it back to them, to the bourgeoisie, then it is a weapon we can use, because they're saying, we live up to these goals, you don't. And you don't even live up to your own stated claims. I think that's a thing that we need to start saying them as well. I mean, it's what, actually, talking about Adam Smith, as I like to do occasionally, is that one of the things he said, which is quite important, is that you should never, ever allow capitalists to run an economy or a state, because these people are only interested in their own selfish local interests. They won't actually look after the wider society, they won't look after their own class in a general sense. Now, but surely the truth of this proposition is sitting in the White House as we speak. Smith is absolutely correct, as Marx makes the same point in relation to the Factory Act. The British Parliament wasn't the most brilliant bunch of people ever, I think we can agree with that, but they were more intelligent than the actual factory owners, who were people working 40 hours a day and killing them and so on. So there's a sense in which one of the problems of the crisis of neoliberalism is actually the way in which actual capitalists are becoming embedded. It's not actually running the state, as Macron and Trump himself, but their views are actually feeding into how it's run, which of course is totally detrimental to the actual running of the bourgeois state, because it's so different from day-to-day workings of capitalism. So I think that's weakening it. That's what neoliberalism has done. It could be potentially to our advantage. Still point with McCarthyism, I think it simply made it more possible to be a socialist activist in the 60s, because you simply get arrested by the FBI or whatever, and so there is that way in which once the initial, we got to the mid-50s, it certainly wasn't easy to be a socialist in the state, even in the 50s, and certainly not in the South, but nevertheless, it became easier. And if you look at the kind of responses of even the Maoists, in Thailand and so on, they were saying, are you a communist? Well, yeah, of course I'm not a communist. That kind of response, which you wouldn't have necessarily got in the 40s and 50s, when people were kind of more, willing to dissemble, So I think it is closed. I think McCarthyism comes to a natural end anyway, in terms of business for the American state by 54, which is why we were able to dispense with them. Okay. The African thing about I think probably the fact that Mozambique and Angola didn't actually have been industrialised areas, and the nature of revolution in Africa was really led by guerrillas and kind of conventional warfare, because there wasn't actually the kind of economy of Africa. There were huge workplaces and so on where people could exercise working class strength. So in a sense, it's important when we think of the Italian Revolution, which is a potential. It's not something that can happen just everywhere in the third world, regardless of the size of the working class. There has to be an actual working class of some size before it becomes a possibility. And a lot of places where the communist guerrilla movements could still have well, actually very large working classes. And that wasn't something that could happen like Afghanistan, for God's sake. It didn't have a working class, even in 78 really. So how was that going to work? It obviously tied into a broad international movement for that to happen in a previous event. China, though, however, is like, I don't think people understand the level of the class struggle in China. On a day-to-day basis, that strikes, demonstrations demanding the law intervenes, walkouts. This happens on a kind of daily basis. If you read the China Labour Review, or whatever it's called, it's a list of all of these things. And it's grief, this is happening all the time. And not just in the big cities, in some of these cities which are conjured out of the ground in order to build factories And then, these places in the middle of nowhere, where there's again an old classic kind of steel town or motor town or something, and there's a level of struggle there. I don't think you can see with it, just how intense this is. So the problem is it's not united, directed, generalised, and partly that's of course because China still pretends to be a socialist or communist state and so on. And some people incredibly think that it still is, or ever was, a socialist state. Michael Roberts, he's an intelligent man in his economic analysis, has a fantasy about China being somehow still a worker state. And what's workers rule bloody China, for God's sake? There's never really workers rule in China. This is nonsense, a metaphysics. Not an actual deal. The six was on there. Particular guide there. There's something I think is called raised the question of the generations and generational conflict. I think we have to be really insistent on rejecting the idea of the generation gap, particularly because it's being revived in the most idiotic form possible by people complaining about baby boomers. Like, it's all your fault, baby boomers, for having all the deep pensions and houses and having a great time in the 60s. That's why students are being attacked now. No, it's not. It's because they're being attacked by bloody neoliberal governments who are insisting on taking away their rights and making us pay for education and so on. It's nonsense. And what I think about the miners' strike in this country, 1984, 85, watching miners having their heads kicked in by the police and going, oh, that's those terrible baby boomers. Well, they were, of course, they're all born in the late 40s and the mid 50s. So what it means is a small section of the middle class did quite well out of the 50s and 60s. And it's them there are problems with, because most of them are from bloody neoliberal politicians like Tony Blair. That is not the majority of people born in 1945 and 1955, honestly. So I think we have to reject it. There's not a generation gap in that sense. I think the problem is there was a once-for-all shift that took place at some point in the late 60s, when attitudes towards sexuality and so on. Every generation had a gap in some sense, in the culture of fathers and sons and all this kind of stuff way back in the 19th century. But something more fundamental happened, and a lot of attitudes changed on a much more permanent basis. That's not just the endless generation gap, that's a kind of once-for-all shift. This is described very well, although very pessimistically, by the rock journalist Ian MacDonald in his book about the Beatles, actually, which I've no problems with it, but he actually does talk very well about this once-for-all kind of transformation in people's attitudes. Finally, maybe not finally. Two things. One is about squatting and housing issues. I think that's really important, because I had to pass over, obviously, a lot of the kind of things that actually happened. One of those things that, for example, 68 and into the 70s, as you say, was actually things like people seizing houses, squatting in them, and setting up, not necessarily communes, but just setting up, we demand the right to somewhere to live. And this lasted right the way into up to the Thatcher era, really. And it acts as a kind of link between hippie and punk. There are a number of links between hippie and punk, theoretically. At this point, I won't go into it, but nevertheless, that's one of them. Is basing this off of a sport that people would use go by, that's cultural activities. And finally, on communists. I think there's a problem because the communist parties were, to a large extent, discredited by the attitudes they take, even in places like Portugal and Spain. Whereas in most of those places, the Social Democrats hadn't been tested in any kind of way. So they're able to present themselves as being new, shiny, after all, you haven't had a reform system, you haven't democracy and so on, prior. So and often they talk to the left of the Communist Party, particularly in Portugal, actually, during that revolution. So there was a kind of way in which, so remember, this is after Hungary, this is after Czechoslovakia, and the kind of, the people knew that the Stalinist regimes were like at this point in Europe, and those illusions had kind of gone. So it meant people were a bit more sceptical about the communist parties, and I think their compromises and stuff they made that people just weren't prepared to accept. And some people did, obviously, but by and large, like PASOK in Greece, for example, emerges as the Socialist Party in Portugal, and they emerge and they become the kind of political vehicle for people wanting change in a reformist way. Finally, and this is just the point that coming back there about the distinction between the movements and the working class, and these two separate things. Now, this is an absolute sort of theme of most of the books about 68, or even the post-war period, like Tony Judd, even quite good ones like Richard Feynman's book. They all make this obsessive distinction between sort of movement, identity politics, social attitudes in 68, 69, 70, and then the working class, comes in with their vulgar demands for higher wages and better conditions in the group and quite like that. But I mean, it's kind of, there's this kind of big distinction. It's not true, right? I think it's first thing that we have to say, there wasn't this big division between the two. And think of something like the Lordstown struggle in Ohio, the car plant in Ohio in 1973. What was the demand of the workers? Most of whom were long hairs, hippies, that worked on the production line. It was against alienation. Truly the most movementy kind of thing. Imagine that it paralysed that plant, and then we look for how long the strike went on for. And indeed, I think one of the sort of students who said this was the Woodstock of the working man. So, I mean, and again, Vietnam, the kind of black groups in particular would go dressed in the kind of outfits of the Black Panthers and the movement, smoking dope and so on, and the officers too frightened to actually call them in on this. So there is there's obviously some divisions. There are more conservative areas to working class, some attitudes amongst the movement which didn't want to engage the working class, but there was an overlap. And I think the idea that there was this great distinction is one of the myths that we have to break down as we look back on 60 and the theory and try and understand it properly. Thank you.
Beginning a series of discussions going on into May, so everybody needs to look at the website. I hope we'll put down how to contact them and when it's going to be updated.
Has anyone got that list that was going around, please?
That's great. Can I just remind everybody the next one, which is at the March Month Community Centre, Tuesday the 9th.